Kirk, have you ever noticed that when you're really, really busy, you somehow become even worse at managing your time?
Oh, absolutely. The less time that I have, the more likely I am that I'm gonna make a bad decision, I'm gonna make a mistake, I'm gonna do, all these bad things, even though I should be focused in on that, right? But yeah.
Same, which seems completely backwards. You'd think the more you have to do, the more you try to optimize your time, right?
Yeah, it does. But today, we're gonna be talking about why having too little of something, whether that be time, whether that be money, energy, attention, actually changes how our brain works, which might explain that
Love
actual,
it.
issue.
With
There
that,
you go.
welcome to Behavior Shift, the podcast where we explore the science behind what we do and how we can do it better.
All right. So today's topic comes from one of my favorite books in behavioral science. It's called Scarcity: Why Having Too Little Means So Much. It's by Sendel Mullainathan and Elder Shafir, two fantastic researchers. Sendel, one of my favorites out of the University of Chicago, and Elder is just a powerhouse in the field. And they really explored this, and it was really cool.
Absolutely. So, Kurt, walk us through the big idea here. What's the big concept behind scarcity?
Yeah, so the big idea is that scarcity isn't just about having less of something, uh, not about just not having that thing. It actually changes how we think. It changes our brain. It changes our feelings. It changes that part. So it's a much broader thing than just not having, oh, I don't have as much time or as much money. No, it actually changes how we think.
And you made a good point there. A lot of people, I think, when they hear scarcity, they automatically start thinking about things such as money, right?
hmm
With the context that we're talking about it in, we're looking at it a little bit differently. What is scarcity in this particular context?
Yeah, obviously money is a key thing, and that's where a lot of the research has gone. The research has gone into studying, like, if people don't have if they're poor, right, what that does. But you can also be scarce in a number of other things. You can be scarce in time, as we talked about. You can have sleep scarcity, right? I didn't get enough sleep last night. You can have attention scarcity. The We talked about, like, when the phone takes us over and, we're not being able to focus, right? You can have social scarcity. You cannot have people in your life. So anytime that you feel like you don't have, like, when you don't have enough of something that's important, scarcity shows up. So what ends up happening when we have that scarcity of whatever it is? What do you think happens? Where do we
um,
where
we
do we focus?
we end up getting tunnel vision on that one specific thing that's taking up the majority of our attention, right?
Yeah, so when something is scarce, our brains, we zoom in on it, right? We zoom in on that thing that is scarce. So if we're scarce on time and we have a deadline coming up, I'm just thinking, I know for myself, I just think about that deadline. If I have a bill to pay and I looking at my bank account going, "Oh crap, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do this." I'm just thinking about money all of the time when I'm just not when I'm supposed to, right? When I'm laying down to go to bed, what happens? What comes to your head, right? So, when you're getting up and taking a shower, what comes to your head? When you're driving your car and you're supposed to be paying attention on the phone, what am I thinking about? I'm thinking about whatever is scarce. That scarce thing becomes incredibly salient, very focused in our brain.
It's the thing at 2 in the morning when you can't sleep that overwhelms all of your other thoughts, right?
Yeah, it's kinda like, um, you're holding a flashlight, right?
Mhm.
And the problem is that, uh, that flashlight can only focus in on whatever is scarce. And so everything else just kind of is hard to see. It disappears into the dark.
So some people might argue if that's the thing that needs your attention because it's scarce, what's the downside to that? Couldn't it be useful to hone in on it and ultra focus?
Yeah, I mean, that obviously there's an evolutionary component to this, and so we evolved to have this focus when things are scarce for a reason. Obviously, think about if, we evolved and we were short on food, we need food. So now we're all focused. And so we're going to be, as a tribe, we're going to go out and we're going to focus on that food. So, yes, it has that ability to make sure that we're focused in there, but that focus comes at a cost. So, when we are so focused, when we're having that tunnel vision, as you said, we miss other important things. So, today's deadline that I'm so ultimately focused on, I forget that I'm supposed to be starting next week's project and I don't do that. And so therefore I fall
Mhm.
behind on next week's project. Or the bill that I have to focus in on today doesn't allow me to go, "Oh, let's talk about long-term planning and what are my financial, resources going to look like 2 years from now?" No. I'm just paying that bill next week. So, when you survive from moment to moment or whatever the scarcity piece is, we're losing sight of the future.
Mhm. Yeah, it takes away your ability to focus energy on those other things when you're fixated on that one.
Yeah.
Which brings up a great concept from the book, called the bandwidth tax, which gets right into that idea. Do you wanna talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so it's one of my favorite concepts from the book because basically, scarcity consumes mental bandwidth, right? So, which seems strange, but again, as we talked about that focus. So, as I mentioned before, even when you're not actively thinking about it, like if I'm doing my taxes and I'm realizing, oh, or my financial spreadsheet or whatever it is, and I realize how little money I have and and I'm focused on it. That makes sense. But it doesn't necessarily make sense that, when I'm not thinking about it, even in the back of my brain, there's a little part of it that's being occupied
Mhm.
by it.
Which gets us into the whole idea of cognitive bandwidth, right? If
Mhm.
you're focused only on that one thing and it's taking up so much of your mental energy, your cognitive ability, your cognitive load, it means that thinking about other things becomes much harder, right? You have maximum capacity that your brain can handle.
You said it exactly right. So, um, and here's what happens with that, and why I think it's important is that we think of poor people as maybe something's wrong with them. There's a character flaw. We think of people who are constantly time stressed, like something's wrong with them. But the and in particular, they've done research on this, right? Is that when you are under scarcity and they measure your IQ decreases. It's lower. They're lower scores on an IQ test. But because you're poor and you're overly focused in on money doesn't mean that you're less intelligent. I mean, if you or I were put in that same situation, our IQs would actually decrease. They say
Mhm.
by 10 or 15 points on an IQ test, which is huge when you think about it.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah, it's a problem because that actually then impacts again, as we said, their thinking and their ability to get out of those scarce situations sometimes. Yes, the focus can help on it, but on things like money and other things, it can really be detrimental. So the problem is that they are carrying that extra cognitive load, and that puts them at a disadvantage.
Yeah, and it actually changes how they think and how what their ability to decide is, right? Whether they can move forward or get stuck in the situation and freeze. I mean,
Eh,
that mental bandwidth is real, when we don't have
Exactly.
it, especially.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
So, what can we do? What's the practical takeaway if you're in this situation where you're finding yourself faced with scarcity that's overloading you and taking up all of your focus? You're missing all these other things. How do you fix that? What do you do?
Well, if you're stuck in the middle of it, it's hard, right? So, but understanding that this happens, what we need to be able to do is try to build in buffers, try to build in slack, time buffers, financial buffers. So, you know what? Try to put some things in savings before you go. So if you can have that pile of money somewhere that's away, then when those hard times come, you're not feeling the same pressure that you would feel if you didn't have that. Same thing around time. Can you build into your schedule. So next week, build downtime, right? We talk about this in some of the with
You
some of the
call them
tools, right? Is building
brain breaks, right?
brain breaks.
Intentional moments to have that time
Same thing
available to you.
around, like, energy. If you're sleep deprived and various different things, can you build in time? Maybe you can't get that sleep at night, but can you build in downtimes, rest times, maybe a time for a nap? It's kind of these margins, right? If you think about, if the wider your margins are around whatever it is, that can help, and so build bigger margins, and people often go, "Well, you're just wasting time if you're just doing this, downtime on this, or you're putting money away that you could use better, today." Well, there's some benefits of that in the long run.
Yeah, you're not wasting time, you're protecting your thinking, and you're actually probably making the time that you are using more effective and more optimized, right?
Exactly, exactly. I mean, that's you nailed it, yeah.
And I think that's the big thing here, right? When we don't have enough of something, we're going to naturally just focus in on it, whether it's time, whether it's money, whether it's food, like whatever that thing is. And that brings up the challenge of remembering that we're also focusing on other things too, or need to focus on other things too. And scarcity takes that one thing, hones you in with that tunnel vision, creates a spotlight on it. But if we aren't careful, we let that suck us into that fixation, um, we'll just be stuck in that spot and forget about everything else, right?
Yeah, it's like, when you get that spotlight, tunnel vision, whatever, it's the detriment of everything else, and so that's not good. So, with that, we thank you for listening. Hopefully, you aren't, having a scarcity in time, and you were able to
Mhm.
listen to this with full attention on what we were saying, but we really appreciate you, listening in.
Agreed. We'll see you next time, hopefully with a little bit more margin and a little less scarcity than you had yesterday.